Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man walah. Amma ba'd. We continue from page 55, the role of fatherhood, and we remind the brothers and the sisters and those that are watching online that in the series we're obviously going not extremely fast, so that we can talk about a lot of the topics that aren't 100% discussed. At least they're not discussed the way that they should be in society. And so that means some things we'll skim over because alhamdulillah we've already discussed it in a bit of detail. But then there's other things that we need to stop and we need to pause on. So sometimes it may feel that we're going a little bit slower in the book and we're talking about a lot of different topics, but we're trying to address as much as we can all of the problems regarding parenting. In terms of the do's and don'ts, we can do that in 2-3 weeks. Very, very simply. But in terms of the broader understanding of what Islam wants from parenting and the mistakes made today and how to avoid them, sometimes we need to put a little bit more emphasis. So I do apologize if it feels that we're not going through the book as quick as possible, but that's not the intention of books. The intention is to benefit. If that means sometimes we need to only do 1 page, then that's all we'll do. Now, and where we can, we will skip. So today the role of fatherhood, it's going to be a mix of both. There's a lot of things that alhamdulillah we've mentioned before, so we don't need to stop and repeat. We can just skim quickly over it. But then there's other aspects that we might need to get into a little bit of detail. She says, rahmatullahi alayha, the role of fatherhood. As mentioned, the husband is responsible for providing the sustenance and needs of his wife and children. This includes provision for food, clothing, shelter, and other basic needs according to his financial income and social norms. This word here, social norms, al-urf, is something very important in Islam. And we've spoken about this before, but we'll re-emphasize that what you need to provide to your wife is dependent upon the urf, the customs of the people. If, for example, you're from the high class and you get married and she's from the high class, and that's the expectation of marriage, you can't say, I'm going to put you, for example, in a granny flat, or I'm going to put you in a 1-bedroom studio, because that's not what you married her on. That wasn't the custom. Now, the only way you'll have to change that Islamically is if you both agree to that. So in terms of what you need to provide from clothing, from food, from a car, from outings, etc., all of that is dependent on the custom. Some brothers, they're very stingy. A'yadhan billah. And so they expect for the wife to accept things which she doesn't need to. You need to drop to a level that she doesn't need to. He's able to afford it and she's from that level of society. And sometimes you have, for example, some women the opposite. Some women, they want to live a lot better than what their husbands can afford. And their husbands aren't from that level in society, nor are they as females. So they can't expect every bag that they have to be Louis Vuitton and Dior and Balenciaga and the others. Naam, Balenciaga. Don't buy any of those brands. Naam. But a person needs to understand that when you get married, the spending is according to that. So if you get married now to a girl, and even if you don't speak about the specifics, there is an unspoken understanding according to the custom that you're from and the custom that she's from. And if you or her expect that to be any different, you want to live above or below that standard, then make sure that you address that in the engagement period. In general, he's responsible for the physical welfare and well-being, which also entails a measure of safety and security. The importance of this cannot be neglected. As the Prophet ﷺ said, it is a sufficient sin for a man if he neglects those on whom he is obliged to spend. Be very careful of not spending on your family. One of the worst traits a man can have is that he's a stingy person. Yes, don't be reckless and stupid in your spending 100%, but at the same time, don't make your wife feel that she needs to beg you and put in 15 applications in order for you to approve a simple purchase. Whether it's an allowance that you have for your wife or a set of money or flexibility. Most women, alhamdulillah, they're going to be responsible when it comes to this. And obviously, if they're not, you can have a conversation without doubt. Stupid, unnecessary spending hundreds or thousands of dollars a week on stupid things is obviously inappropriate if it's not from your norm. But for a woman to be scared to buy certain types of food, or you never go out, or you never put the aircon on, etc., some people are like this, and it's a big problem. One of the worst traits a person can have is for them to be stingy. Be very careful of having this, not only for them but also for your children. Also for your children. Don't go above. We're not saying go above, We don't want any israf or tabdhir, but also we don't want below. What's israf and what's tabdhir? Side note. What's israf and what's tabdhir?
Israf means wastefulness.
And what's tabdhir?
And is to like unnecessary spending in this.
MashaAllah, not bad, tabarakallah. Okay, israf, when a person transgresses or overdoes the limit. So there may be benefit in it, but he overdoes it. So for example, let's say water, when you're making wudu. So you need to use the water, correct? Do you need to use the water on full blast? You don't need to use the water on full blast. Or if you stop and you have to talk to someone or do something, you don't need to leave the water running while you go and talk to someone or leave the water running. This unnecessary wastage, this is israf. Like food. Okay, you need to eat, but for you to cook big amounts that you know you're not going to finish, you're going to throw away, this is israf. And tabdhir is spending money on stupid things, things that are not beneficial, things that a person doesn't need whatsoever. Like for example, someone buys, just as an example, $1,000 shirt that he knows he's never going to wear. But khalas, I like that shirt and I bought it, and it's going to sit in my cupboard with no usage whatsoever. Okay, there wasn't any benefit to it whatsoever. Or a person, Allah barik, he wants to have a shoe collection, and so he's got 90 pairs of shoes, not for an investment, not for a business. Just because I liked it, and I got it, and I put it there, and I'm never going to wear it. And the price is going to reduce, but at least I've got it sitting in my cupboard and my wall looks nice. Okay, this is unnecessary spending. He's not going to have any benefit from it. This is an issue. Now, as for if you spend money on something which is beneficial and usable, etc., 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 then in general, that's no problem. In general. Due to this responsibility, the father is the authority in the family and the leader of the family unit. No organization can function effectively without a manager. And in the family, the father takes care of this important role. In essence, this means that he is deserving of obedience from all family members, and he has the final word in all decisions. This does not preclude discussion and compromise on important matters, but the father is worthy of due respect and obedience. So you, as a responsibility, you fulfill the looking after of the family, then you are deserving of the obedience from the family. Some people try and overcompensate. He doesn't fulfill his roles, and because he feels less of a man, he tries to enforce it physically upon his family members. This is a problem. And also the women. If the husband is fulfilling his role, is trying his best, etc., be obedient to your husband. Listen. Don't cause problems. Don't cause issues. Don't cause unnecessary arguments, etc. Yes, the husband and wife, they should discuss matters. They should talk about matters. But if a final decision is made, khalas, this is it. This is qudi al-amr. Assalamu alaikum, done, finished. There's no need to cause problems. As she mentions, there's no organization that can run except that it needs a leader. And that leader, you can discuss with that leader, no problem. Could be a captain of a team, it could be a boss at work. You can discuss as much as you want. But once a decision is made, a decision is made. And believe me, sisters, the easier you make the life of your husbands, the easier they'll make your life, inshallah. Now, we've said it many times, a man is a slave to an obedient wife. A man is a slave to an obedient wife. The woman is good, unless the man is an extremely bad person, then the husband will also be good, inshallah. In cooperation with the mother, the father also attends to the spiritual, psychological, and intellectual socialization of their children. He must ensure that they are receiving a proper Islamic education, and he must assist them in acquiring praiseworthy characteristics and proper manners. This, of necessity, means that he must be involved in the training and rearing of his children. Many fathers neglect this duty in their overzealous attempt to fulfill the obligation of physical maintenance. In order for the family to function effectively, there must be a balance between those various rights and responsibilities. Especially nowadays. Nowadays, you as a father, you need to make sure that you are very involved in your child's life. Obviously, the very early years, yes, a lot is going to be passed on to the mother. That's understandable because of the breastfeeding and the lack of understanding in terms of the learning for the children, their intellectual capacity. But once that child starts to become a little bit older, especially around that 6, 7, 8 years old mark, the father needs to be a lot more involved in the child's life. Even before that, the father is there. But now it becomes more hands-on when the child starts to understand. Now you're going to start taking him to the masjid, you're going to start taking him to sport, you're going to start interacting with him. He's going to start building his character. And this 7 to 14 age period, as we've spoken about before, is very, very, very sensitive. And this is where you mold that child. And this is where the father's role is very important. Especially in our society where the society doesn't raise. We've spoken about this many times before. in previous times, and it's still in some societies today, you could leave your son out on the street and he'll become a man, inshallah. Why? Because everyone in the society helps raise that child. Don't speak like that, sit like this. They assist in the nurturing and the teaching of that child. In Australia, you don't have that. That's the reality. Rather, you have the opposite. You leave their child outside, a'yadhan billah, the confusion that he has, the problems that he has are innumerable. So you have a massive problem. So how do you prevent that from happening? That's where you come in as a father. And a mother doesn't really, generally speaking, have that capacity. The mother, a beautiful expert was talking about this, and they mentioned that they weren't beautiful. What they mentioned was beautiful. They mentioned that very eloquently that the mother is more focused on the rearing of the child internally, meaning like the interactions of the house. That child with his mother, that child with his father, that child with himself, that softer aspect of interaction. As for the father, he prepares that child for the outside world. It's more of an outwardly interaction. How to see, how to deal with adversity, etc. How to be stronger so that you can deal with the outside world. And if you leave that job up to the mother, then usually there's a lot of problems. And anyone that has children a little bit older, you'll see a lot of the time, the mother, maybe she pampers the child a little bit too much. So, it's okay, Baba, don't worry about it, or Mama, it's okay, don't worry about it, you'll be fine. Maybe it's their fault, it's okay to be upset. But sometimes that's counterproductive. Counterproductive because that child now starts to victimize himself. Whenever he does something wrong and someone admonishes him, instead of him learning, maybe I did do something wrong. I shouldn't make excuses. I done something wrong and now I need to learn from it. That's what the father should tell him. Some of you have the mother telling him, what they said was wrong, or how they said it was wrong, or it's okay, you tried your best. So the child doesn't learn. Now the child learns that I can get away with murder. And that's a problem. So yes, the mother needs to be there, especially in the earlier stages, but the father really needs to be involved from that 6, 7, 8-year-old mark, even before that. But now you really need to be involved because you need to be that role model, yourself first and foremost, and assist him and guide him and nurture him in his interactions. That includes your daughters. And get him to understand how the real world works. Okay, how the real world works. Your daughters, 8, 9, 10 years old, they know about boyfriends and girlfriends and kissing and crushes and all of these types of things. Okay, they know about these things, so who's going to be there to teach your daughter? If you're not going to teach your daughter, again, the outside world, they used to be able to teach them about haya and the tricks of boys, etc. Now they don't have that. Now there's a promotion of it. So you need to be very careful. You need to have that conversation with your daughter. You need to mention those nice words to your daughters. You need to make sure that your daughter feels confident in herself, she feels loved, etc. That she can come to you, you're her safety. You need to have that connection with your daughters. If you wait until it's too late, then it's very hard to get them back. One of the brothers, he may be in the crowd, Allahu A'lam, he asked me a question, or asked me on behalf of a family who aren't very religious at all. They're not practicing. And now their son is far astray. They're asking me for advice now. Your son's an adult child. How old was he? Was it you that asked me? Okay, Allah. Yeah. Your son's an adult child. Okay, 20 or something. And the family's not practicing. And now you want advice? We do every Tuesday night at Regis Park. Why didn't you come? Now, may Allah safeguard us and our children from His guidance. This is a big problem. You wait until it's too late, and because they're not practicing, and their son's now not practicing, ask yourself, what are they upset about? They're just not happy with his haram. They're happy for him to do haram, but just not the haram that he's doing. Just do the haram that they're doing and he'll be happy. But because he's doing his haram, they're not happy with that. So it's very hard when he's older to come and talk to him. What are you going to tell him? Okay, come to the masjid. What are you going to tell him? Come to lessons. We're more than happy to give advice. And we should be giving advice. But we need to be realistic with ourselves. You wait till it's too late, it's very hard for a person to give advice. It's very hard for a person to give advice to those individuals. You need to start when they are young, and this is why you need to be very involved as a father. And all the excuses that you make, know that you'll be crying tears of blood and you wish that you could have done anything you could to look after your children at that age. Once you see them 20 years old, 25 years old, living however they want, not caring about you, and then you say, man, I wish I could go back and take that day off work, or take that week off work, or work less hours. Your kids they're not going to care about that money. the opportunity is gone. You needed to be there. Now you're going to say, I wish I slept less, I wish I didn't get out with my mates as much. Whatever the excuse you made that you didn't raise your children properly at a younger age, you're going to be regretting it later on. Children need interaction and time with their father just as they do with their mother. This is particularly true for boys who require a suitable role model. Active fatherhood is central to a man's role in life and to the development of his children. The children need to know that their father loves and cares for them and that he has their best interest in mind. The Muslim father is an inspiring role model, teacher, friend, and a source of practical advice. Even the physical interactions that you have with your children, like when you rough play, this rough play that a person has with their children, psychologically they tell us that this benefits the child later on. And a child is always in bubble wrap, he's always with his mum, and his mum is always soft with him. He becomes soft when he's older, and he doesn't know how to overcome adversity, and he doesn't know how to deal with pain, etc. But for example, like when you muck around with your children, you wrestle them, you not bash them, okay, but you spar with them, okay, maybe you throw them, etc. Not in a violent way. Well, you get scared to mention anything now. Yeah, when you're a bit rough with your children in a playful way, then a person, when they're young and they go through that, they're better suited as adults. They're better suited as adults to deal with life. Because they learn, things get rough, you muck around, how to deal with it, their heart rate goes up, they get a little bit hurt, but they come back, they learn from it, and this is very important. Okay, this is very important, psychologically speaking, for their adulthood. But if you leave them wrapped in bubble wrap, then they're going to come up with many issues that we see, unfortunately, very widespread today. There's a great deal of research on the influence that involved fathering has on children. A review on the impact of fatherhood by the UN National Institute of Child Health and Human Development shows that a child with an involved father has better social skills by the time she reaches nursery, performs better academically, and is less likely to have behavioral problems in the future. Once again, scientific research attests to the wisdom of Islamic teachings. I can't remember the statistics, but I wish I wrote them down. I was seeing a summary of a report about in terms of a crime and people in jail and all these types of things. And the graph, when it shows the ones who are from single mother households, they grew up without a father. The ones who grew up without a father were so far more in terms of percentages in the makeup of these statistics that were related to crime and unemployment, etc., than the ones who had fathers. The ones who had fathers were so much better. So much better. And this is the reality. This is the reality that you find over and over and over again. Someone who had involved parents, not just single parents, is the worst. Okay, in terms of she tries to raise the kid by herself, he has no father figure, he does whatever he wants. Then you got the ones who had fathers there, but they weren't involved in the child's life. They were like job kicks, like sleeping all day or out all night, etc. They're like second after that. But in terms of someone who had two active parents there, in terms of their success in life, this was so much higher than everyone else. And this is very important to keep in mind for your own children. That you don't want them to grow up in single parent households, and at the same time, you don't want them to have a father that lives in the house but is not present. You want to be there as a father, doing what he can in order to give your child the best chance at success religiously and worldly. If someone is divorced, as we've mentioned, it's very important that the mother does not cause problems for the father to be involved in that child's life. That child needs that father, whether you like it or not. You can hate him as much as possible, but that doesn't mean that you neglect the needs of the child. And the fathers also make sure, if you get divorced, just because you hate your ex-wife, don't neglect your children. Even though this is a lot less. This is a lot less in the community. There's a lot less fathers not wanting to be involved in their children's life once they get divorced, as there is mothers who cause problems to attack and to get back at the ex-husband through the children. Don't be like that. Nurturing one's own iman, it is valuable to mention that for parents to be maximally successful in their mission, they must focus some time on increasing their own iman. The lessons that are acquired over the course of reading this book are not only applicable to children, but to those holding the book as well. This is in reality one of the purposes of this endeavor. A long-standing tenet in the education field is that we tend to learn the most by teaching others. Parenting provides just such an invaluable opportunity. In addition to this material, parents need to explore other means to enhance their iman, whether it be through seeking knowledge, which is essential, increasing worship, or contributing to the Muslim community. Doing this will make the task of nurturing Iman in children all that much easier. When it comes to you yourself being an example for your children, again, we've said this, everything is consistent, has to be consistent, is that children listen with their eyes. If your children see from you as an individual that you preach something but you implement it, your children are going to trust your words. They're going to say, yes, it must be right because my parents do it. And if my parents are telling me something and doing it, it means that they want what's best for me. But if you told them something and you don't implement it yourself, it becomes very hard for your child to trust you. Because with children, it's black and white. So if you're telling them to do something and you're not doing it, to them, that's hypocrisy. And how are you telling me not to smoke and you smoke? You're telling me not to talk to boys, but mom, you talk to boys. You're telling me that don't talk to girls, but dad, you talk to girls. You're telling me don't watch anything haram, but you watch haram. You're telling me don't listen to music, but you listen to music. You're telling me don't go clubbing, but you go to weddings. It doesn't make sense. Okay, so you need to make sure that as a parent, not only religiously, you know what's right and wrong, but that you implement right and wrong. And even in the worldly matters, not only you told them to do right and wrong, but you also, make sure you do the right and stay away from the wrong. Because a lot of parents, and it's happened in front of me, they can't even tell their kids, don't marry this person, or don't be lazy, like don't be unemployed, go out and work there, or even if you're going through a bit of problems, you have to overcome them. They can't tell their kids that. It's happened in front of me, where the parent can't say it. Why? Because if they try, they know the child's going to say, yeah, but you don't do it. Or you got divorced. Or you married someone that your parents didn't want you to marry. Or you don't work. Or you complain about this. Or you take prescription medicine to knock yourself out of reality. So how are you going to come give me advice? So it's a big problem. It's a massive issue. Okay, children, they're going to see you and they're going to feed off that. If you are upright, inshallah, Azza wa Jal, they're going to be upright, inshallah. That's the general rule. But if they see you buckled, it's very hard for them to follow in your footsteps. I hate when I see a child, they come, for example, to Islamic class or Islamic school, especially Islamic class because it's more specific related to deen. They may spend 2-3 hours in Islamic lesson. Then you can hear the mom who comes and picks up the child with music on. Like you can hear it. That child, just imagine what goes through that child's head. The sheikh told me XYZ about the deen. I get into the car, now my mom's blaring music. Hold on a second. There's a big issue here. Either the sheikh's wrong and my mom's right, which young kids will usually think because they trust their mother more than anyone else. Or the sheikh's right and my mom's wrong, which means my mom's a write-off. Or if my mom says you have to listen to the sheikh, it means my mom's a liar, she's a hypocrite because she doesn't listen to the sheikh, which means that she's a write-off. Or the sheikh's right, but it's not that important what he says. So we don't need to care much about what he says. Because my mom's a good person, I love my mom, she's an amazing woman, and she listens to music, and the sheikh said it's haram, so maybe it is haram, but maybe the haram isn't that bad. All of these are just examples. And you can choose whichever one you want. None of them are positive. You want that mother to say to that child, yes, go to the lesson of deen and learn what they say and implement it. And she's done the same. That's what you want. So that the child says, yes, we're working together. We're on the same path together. But she sees one thing and they say another thing. It's a big problem. It's a massive problem. Okay, and the examples, they're endless of what we tell our children to be and how to be and what we as parents are actually doing. And it's a massive, massive, massive issue. Basic rights of the child, duties of the parents. The following are some of the basic rights of the child as reflected in the duties and responsibilities of parents. The right to provisions and protection until adulthood. This includes food, clothing, and shelter as provisions. It also entails protection against physical, emotional, intellectual, and moral harm. This aspect begins at the time of conception and continues throughout pregnancy, childhood, and into adulthood. Your job is to look after your children in all aspects. That's your job. That's your responsibility. That's an obligation that Allah has placed upon you for you to look after your children. Which means that it's not just about the financial aspect. It's about everything that is going to help that child. If it's about education, you have to assist with that education. Clothing, with clothing. Also in your interactions, which is more important than the financial aspect. Your interaction, your duty, your job is to make sure that that parent is upright, that child is upright through your interactions, that they're smart, that they're wise, that they've got good character. If you, for example, put that child down, you smash that child constantly, something that we were just talking about before. You smash that child constantly. They're never good enough. They're dumb. They're stupid. They can never get anything right. They're failures. You wish you never had them. You're just waiting for the angel of death to come so that they can, you can be relaxed from having to look after your children. You say these things to your child. That child, how do you think they're going to grow up? You think they're going to grow up with any self-worth? That daughter usually ends up marrying the biggest of drop kicks because she just wants anyone to show her some emotion and affection. And the drop kick that does show her a drop, she does whatever she wants with him. And now she falls in love and gets abused by him her whole life and can't leave because at least he shows her a drop of affection. Or you have a guy that goes and marries a girl and he gets abused by the girl. And you think, man, why is this guy stuck? Why is he stuck in this relationship? The problem is he thinks that that's normal. That he gets abused by his wife. Why? Because he used to get abused by his parents. So that he just thinks, oh, that's just how people show affection. That's normal. For someone to tell me I'm not good enough and I'm a failure and I need to work harder. It's a massive, massive, massive problem and the cycle just continues. Or for example, someone who, they got no skills in life. So when he gets older, he's socially awkward and he's so anxious, he can't get to a job interview, he can't keep a job because he's got no work ethic. It's just a lifetime of problems. But maybe you were the reason as a parent that happened. Because you never instilled anything in your child. You never spent time to raise your child. So as a parent, your job is to get your child ready for the world. Not just financially. Financially is the easy part. But through their character, through their emotions, through their way of thinking, etc. The right to love and affection. Children have psychological needs that must be met. These include love, affection, mercy, and companionship. It is a basic role of parenting to fulfill these needs through kisses, hugs, kind words, and time spent together. This is critical for effective parenting and discipline. There's a lot of kids out there whose father has never told them that he loves them. Never. A lot of kids out there that have never had a kiss from their father. Don't be that parent. Now, I see it with some young boys who have this problem. It's very, very, very widespread, especially in certain communities, that will struggle later on to show affection to his partner or his children. And this again causes problems with them because then they don't feel loved and they look for that affection elsewhere. The alphabet people, okay? A lot of people in the alphabet community, the reason they look for the gays, some people like, what's this guy talking about? Some people in the LGBTQIA plus community, they go towards that same gender because they lacked that affection when they were younger. So some, because he never got affection off his dad, now he's yearning and he's dying for male attention. So he sees another guy that takes the place of his father and he's attracted to him. Not because it's normal to be like that, but because he just wants someone to take that role of his father. It's a big problem. Okay, it's a big issue. It's sad and it's crazy to think, but when you live in a society that promotes this, when you're growing up with movies that promote this ayatun billah starts to come and creep into the thoughts of many people as an option to make up for what they missed out from their father. So yes, you don't want to go to extremes. Every day, I love you, I love you, I love you, and sit down next to you and you can't get anywhere and don't get hurt and watch out and bubble wrap. We don't want that extreme. But at the same time, you want your child to be confident. You want your child to feel loved. So that they have affection, they have emotion, they have empathy, they understand how to treat people. They trust in what you're saying, they believe in what you're saying. When you give them advice, it's for their benefit. As opposed to their failures and they're wrong and nothing they do will ever be proper and they'll never live up to your standards. And the sooner you die, the better, so you don't see your children failing in front of your eyes, etc. This is a massive issue. This is a massive issue. Your children need to have that love and affection. And there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. Rather, this is something that the Prophet ﷺ encouraged. When the man said, to the Prophet ﷺ, he seen him kissing his children, and he said, I can't remember the exact hadith. If I'm not mistaken, I have 10 children, I've never kissed any of them. And the Prophet ﷺ, admonished this person. What can I do for a person, to the meaning that Allah's removed mercy from his heart. This is not a good thing, it's not a praiseworthy thing for you to be like that. Now, a lot of these kids are bullies. Any kids in schools, any teachers besides Rami? Any other teachers? A lot of the kids that you'll see in schools, like the bad kids, a lot of them at home, all they want is attention. All they want is attention. And a lot of them will be from divorced households will be from, again, absent parent households. All they want is attention. That's why they're naughty. That's why they do things. Because as long as someone's talking to them, they're happy. Just like your wife. A lot of time when your wife fights with you, it's not because anything's wrong. It's just a haram, you haven't spoken to her today, and she wants to talk to you, and the only way she knows how to start a conversation is to start a fight. I'm not joking. It happens. You married? Yeah, really? Alhamdulillah, it happens? Yeah, you just exposed your wife, brother. What's wrong with you? You went to defend your wife. You went to say, no, alhamdulillah, my wife is amazing. Okay. You're off camera? Yeah, but your voice isn't now. So, they'll do that just because they want that attention or whatever it may be. My kids are the same. A lot of the children, when they act out, okay, like unordinarily, they act out. Sometimes they may have learning difficulties. Okay, they may be a bit slower, or they may have some sort of issues where they can't sit in a classroom, which is one problem. Okay, that's not an issue. We can help sort that out, inshallah. A lot of the other time, it's just about their emotional state. They just want someone to talk to them. They don't care how they get it, even if they get in trouble. I'll get expelled from school, no problem. Someone talk to me, give me attention. Put the focus on me. And a lot of children are like that. A lot of children are like that. And it's, again, very, very, very easy to notice with a lot of these children in schools and institutions. The third, the right to paternity and inheritance. This is one that we're going to focus on a little bit, inshallah. Every child has the right to know his or her lineage and parents. It is for this reason that the sanctity of the marital bond is so protected, and introduction of foreign reproductive material. It is for this reason that the sanctity of the marital bond is so protected, and the introduction of foreign reproductive material forbidden. It is for this reason as well that adoption is prohibited in Islam, and for the same reason a child carries his father's name. The right to inheritance is guaranteed by Islamic law. This is a very, very, very important one. Number one, in Islam, we know that from the goals the Sharia wants to achieve is the lineage to be protected. So, for example, this person is this person's father, that person is that person's father, etc., etc., etc. That's why we don't have zina. That's why we don't have extramarital affairs. That's why you have to get married, and marriage is encouraged in Islam. That's why the woman can't marry, or from the wisdoms of why a woman can't marry more than one man at a time. Okay, there's all of these benefits. A person, even if they look after an orphan or they look after a poor child, they're not allowed to adopt them in the sense that they take their last name. They're allowed to foster, look after, but they keep their own father's last name, etc. This is something extremely important in Islam. Very, very, very important. And a lot of our sisters especially, they need to pay a lot of attention to this. A lot of attention. Why? Because this problem of women getting divorced and preventing their children from seeing their fathers is one of the worst sins that you can commit, especially nowadays. This is a major, major, major sin. This is a major, major, major sin for you to prevent the father from seeing the children. Not only is it a massive sin in and of itself, but now you are setting that child up for failure in life. You are stuffing up the future of that child. So now you're held responsible for the bad that happens in that child's life because of your actions. If you're dirty, you're salty at the father for something that he done wrong, no problem, that's between you and him. You already got divorced. Halas, you got divorced. What more do you want? At least give the children the best possible chance to not be affected negatively by the divorce. Otherwise, you're setting them up for failure too. It's a massive problem. Sisters need to be very careful that they do not go against the Sharia. On the day of judgment, when Allah Azza resurrects us, He's not going to ask us, what did the Australian legislative authorities say? Okay, you put an AVO, khalas, yeah, that's it, it's done, finished. Since you had an AVO, you're allowed to go to Jannah. These are the rights of people, and they are the rights of people according to the Sharia. According to the Sharia. If the father is that much of a grab, ayadun billah, he was touching the kids, or he absolutely he caves the kids' head in, or something like that, ayadun billah, okay, there's a reason to keep the kids away from him. That's understood. Maybe supervised visit or whatever it needs to be. But if it's just because you hate him for whatever reason, I don't care what he's done to you, inshallah, even if he cheated on you, he's bad, he's a grub, he's a bad person, it doesn't mean that you take the kids away from him. You want to get divorced? Get divorced. No problem. That's your right Islamically. But it's got nothing to do with his parenting. Maybe he was the worst of husbands, but maybe he's the best of fathers. And even if he isn't the best of fathers, as long as he's a decent person, a decent father, they are his children. They are his children. So when you prevent them, wallahi, this is a massive sin. And nowadays, it's from the worst of sins that you can commit for the two reasons that we mentioned. Do not keep the children away from the father, no matter what the law allows you to do. Unfortunately, we have sisters that are openly lying because they know that by the time the court gets to it, it may be 2-3 years. And by that time, they've turned the kids away from the father. He hasn't been able to see them, he hasn't been able to contact them, and they've fed him that many lies at such a young age that now they don't even want to speak to their father. There are some kids that are growing up thinking that their fathers hate them. There are cases where the mother and the mother-in-law, they tell them every single day, your father hates you, your father left us, he doesn't want to support us, he's a bad person, etc., etc., etc. And the child grows up thinking that that parent hates him. And then they have problems. What did I do wrong? What did I do to my father? Why do other kids have a father present and my father isn't there? What did I do wrong to my father? And it's all because of, a'yadhu billah, this mother and her evilness at wanting to get back at the husband. Don't be like that, sisters. And if you're a man and you have women in your family that are like this, it is your duty. Okay, you can't force them, unfortunately, but you need to advise them minimally. Minimally advise them. If there are fathers that are supporting their daughters doing these actions. Okay, there are brothers that are supporting. And now your job, your duty is to remind your daughter about the hellfire. Remind them about the day of judgment. Remind them about what Islam says. Are you not a believer? Are you not a Muslimah? You don't believe in what Islam says? Okay, again, yeah, he's a grub, no problem. The guy's a grub, the guy's a dog, the guy's every single bad word you want to say, yeah, he is, no problem. But what's that got to do with his children? What's that got to do with his children? Do not stuff up the lives of your children because of your hatred. Even Allah Azza wa Jalla, when He speaks about divorce, tafriqun bihsan, leave each other with goodness, with perfection. لا تنسوا الفضل بينكم, do not forget the goodness between you. Don't forget the goodness. Some of the ulama mentioned that it is about the children. You got children in between you. Okay, it's not amicable between you and them anymore, no problem. But don't stuff up their lives also. Some parents, wallahi, they're supporting their daughters in this oppression, and they are held accountable about with this too. Don't think that, wallah, it's my daughter, I don't have any choice. Habibi, you can talk to your daughter. You can take those children, again, legally, if there's no ABA especially, you can take those children and you can let them go see their father. You have that right. You have that ability. You have that chance. Don't support your daughters in this wrong and in this oppression. Wallahi, it's a major problem. Major problem. And this is from the deficiency of man-made laws. They put in all of these laws to protect the woman. But they're done it at the expense of now the men. So now the man gets oppressed because of the oppression that used to happen, according to them, from the woman, and now we need to protect the woman. Whereas Islam, subhanAllah, it's beautiful in its dealings with these matters. It's beautiful, it's amazing. It's just. It doesn't lead to this or it doesn't lead to that. But this is what people are not realizing, that we're not going to be judged by Australian law on the day of judgment. Keeping a child away from his father 2, 3, 4 years. And then the child hates the child, he doesn't want to see his father anymore after that. Some children think that their parents are dead. Some children think that their father has passed away. That's what they grew up on. And my father's dead. And until later on they become adults and they realize that their father's alive. This is something, wallahi, how these people are going to stand in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, no. You got to remember, when it comes to rights of others, you can't just ask Allah for forgiveness. When you go to Hajj, even if your Hajj is accepted and all your sins are forgiven, like a newborn child, that doesn't include the rights of others. Just like if you stole $1,000 of someone, you can't just go ask Allah for forgiveness. You need to ask Allah for forgiveness for stealing, and you need to go give that person their money back. If you took away the rights of the father, which is from the greatest of rights in Islam, you can't just ask, Ya Allah, forgive me. You need to go and give that person their rights back. How are you going to get the forgiveness of this father? On the day of judgment, imagine how much good deeds have you done when you've taken a child away from his father? How much good deeds have you done for you to give him? You're going to give and give and give, and then what? Allahumma barik, how much hasanat do you think you have oppressing the father like that his whole life? His whole life, with multiple children sometimes. And then you're going to run out of hasanat, and now you've got sins that you have to take off them. Be very careful, sisters, very careful. Also includes the right to inheritance in Islam. This is also something very important. Do not be that person that thinks that you can implement Islam how you want. Inheritance is split up already in the Sharia. You have 1/3 of your wealth that can go to a place where the Sharia did not specify. As for those who specified your children, your wife, and your parents, the Sharia already specified. If anyone passes away and they have parents, or they have a spouse, or they have children, automatically the Sharia has given them. And they are only allowed to take what the Sharia gave them. So for example, if Islam gave the boy double the girl, there's wisdoms for that. There's reasons for that. You're not allowed to give the girls more or the boys more. You're not allowed. You have 1/3 of your wealth that can go wherever you want, as long as it's not to people that automatically inherit. You can give to the masjid, you can give to the poor and needy overseas, you can give to your cousin, you can give to your friend. It's up to you. But you can't give to people that automatically inherit, like your parents, your spouse, or your children. Some people, they think that, oh Allah, I'm smart. While I'm alive, I can split up my inheritance. No, Habibi. Go learn the Sharia. You're not allowed to split up inheritance before you pass away just because you're alive. If a parent does something that's going to affect the inheritance of the children, then the children can put a stop to that. For example, let's say the father, he doesn't have much money. Let's say he's got $10,000. Okay, that's a lot these days. Let's say the father's got $10,000. Okay, but he owns his house. And he says, you know what? I'm getting closer to my death. I want to do a lot of good deeds. I've done a lot of bad in my life. I'm going to sell my house and I'm going to give it all in sadaqah. So all his money is going to go in sadaqah and he's going to leave his kids $10,000. The kids Islamically can put a stop to that. The kids Islamically can put a stop to that and they can say, this is going to cause us harm. The dad can't say, oh, this is my money, I can do whatever I want with it. No. It's not allowed like that. It doesn't work like that. They're not allowed to do something that's going to affect the children. So anyway, there's a lot of rulings when it comes to Islamic inheritance. Summarized, do what the Sharia said, and you'll be fine, inshallah. But some brothers and some kids, they're not doing it properly, and some, ayadhan billah, especially overseas, they're oppressing their daughters and not giving them anything, and this is a massive issue. The last one which we'll mention, the right to proper education. The foundation of education is moral and religious training, since this is the most important kind of education, as discussed in the next chapter. This entails proper Islamic education in order to build Aqidah, Tawheed and Iman. Worldly knowledge and information must also be provided in the appropriate proportion. The growth of a child's personality and potential is dependent upon proper education. So the first two things that she says here, Barakallahu fiha, yani wa rahmatullahi alayha, is very clear. Moral and religious training. This is the first type of education that we're talking about. Moral and religious training. A lot of people, they do not spend 1 second teaching their children anything from life. They send their children to school, they stay there from 1 hour to another hour, they come back and they sit on games. They never have a conversation with their children on how they should be. Nor do they provide any Islamic education for children. You need to be that person. You need to have those conversations. Even if it's 1 sentence here or 1 sentence there. Most of you will have a memory of your father or of your mother giving you an advice when you were younger. Most of you would. It may be an incident that happened, that your parents taught you a lesson and it stuck. Imagine if that came a lot more often. Now your children, a lot of them don't even have that one memory. But your children will learn. Sometimes they do something, you remind them, you give them a hadith, you give them an ayah, loving for your brother what you love for yourself. The best of us are those with the best character. Saying Bismillah and eating with your right hand. Very, very, very simple things. But you're providing that moral and religious training to your children from a young age. This is how they get nurtured into strong men and women, inshallah. But if you're not going to provide it, who's going to give it? Always ask yourself that question, and don't rely on Islamic schools. We've said this multiple times. Islamic schools are good for the environment. And your daughter wears hijab, they pray, their food is halal, they don't celebrate Christmas, etc. In terms of them becoming mashayikh, ulama, mujahideen, zuhad, ubbad, people that pray qiyam al-layl and fast Mondays and Thursdays, the chances of winning the lotto may be a little bit, very similar. Okay, very similar. But don't rely on it. Yes, there's a lot of goodness that comes, but you're just there for the environment. As for the teaching, look at it as your personal responsibility. Now, this is some of the stuff to do with fatherhood. Inshallah, Azza wa Jalla is beneficial. Inshallah, we'll continue from next week. هذا والله أعلم. صلى الله عليه وسلم وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين.